it's reflective of just the precarious budget situations in a lot of communities, as we've mentioned before. And South Hadley is just a microcosm of that, and unfortunately, it could be like a poster child if the worst happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. My name is Dennis Hackett.
And I'm Ryan Feyre.
And we'll be your host for today's episode. So on today's episode, it's going to be a little different. We're going to be, we did this a couple of years ago at this point where we had done a story, where Sarah Hainonen had done a story on a mobile home situation in Ludlow, where we brought her on for an interview. And we're going to do that today with one of our regular hosts. We're going to have Tyler as our interviewee today, so it'll be a interesting shift for him. But going beyond the episode, Ryan, how are things with you?
Good. It's going well. I've kind of been tired the last couple of weeks, but I've been excited with all the sports that are going on and everything. So it's been it's been nice. It's been nice as a big sports fan, as we all are.
Yeah. Great time of year, other than missing football. But
yeah. How about you? How have you been?
Oh, it's been good. I've kind of started working out almost every single day.
Okay.
So that's been a shift, but I feel like I have way more energy than I used to.
That's good.
So that's definitely been a good thing.
That's a good thing.
I'm sore as can be, but definitely not as low energy, sleepy like I've been.
Yes.
So that's been good. And then obviously, Ryan, we've been playing some basketball. And it's been nice to get out there.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on the energy thing. I don't know if it's because winter's over and maybe that's why.
That's definitely a big help too.
I think that I do feel a little more motivated to do things. But it's been nice. But yeah, it's been nice to play basketball. I think at the beginning, I think I told Tyler this in the last episode, I was a little just sore everywhere, and I feel like I'm getting a little better. I still get those blisters and stuff, but I'm getting a little more into mid-season form, as they say.
I couldn't walk after we played last week, and then I got basketball shoes. I can actually move around and play again.
It was also 85 degrees last week, I think, when we played. It was really hot.
It was nice when it was 50 the other day.
Yeah,
but
a lot more seasonal for sure.
And I didn't have to cover you, Matt, or Nick. You guys make me run around the court. And I am not fast.
No, you're good in the paint, Dennis. You got the boards, you got the rebounds.
I've been dubbed the pterodactyl by one of our friends.
Yeah, the pterodactyl.
Anywho, I think that's enough kind of hanging around a little bit. But so we'll get in, we've been doing this, probably for most of the year now with our What's News in Western Mass.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a ton of stuff going on and around our East Longmeadow area.
Yep.
We're obviously going to talk about an election today, but Hamden Wilbraham, they have theirs coming up May 16th and May 18th. So be on the lookout for articles from Peter, both on the website and online, for previewing those elections. Then over in Longmeadow, this is kind of a cool story, kind of sports, like we've been talking a little bit. Longmeadow resident Jared Smith, he signed with the Revolution Development Team, so he's been playing up there. Peter did a great feature on him. It's available on the website or in this week's East Longmeadow edition. And one of the kind of big staple events in East Longmeadow is coming back as well. They do their annual fishing derby. That's the Lions Club does the fishing derby. That's going to be this Saturday, April 26th at Heritage Park for kids 3 to 14. Registrations from 6:30 to 10 a.m. And pools get in the water at 7 a.m. and then the derby itself kicks off at 10. Should be done by 10:30. But that's a great thing to get out with the kids for. And spend a nice Saturday morning. I think we're looking at maybe 60 Saturday, so that would be a good day for that.
Yeah.
And then over in Springfield, Steve Athis was named the most recent hometown hero. This was kind of an award put together in 2024, kind of in partnership with the Boston Bruins and 98.5 The Sports Hub, and I believe Wellpoint in Springfield. And they just honored a longtime coach, works the fields. Reading Sarah's story, it was funny seeing how he was expecting to go out and do some work on the field, and then he's just greeted by 75 different people all there to celebrate him. He got a signed Bruins jersey, I believe.
That's cool. Wow.
Pair of tickets to, I think, one of the playoff games. So
that's cool.
It's always cool to highlight people in our area that are doing great things, and when they've done it for so long as a coach for so many people.
Yeah, I know. A lot of serious issues that we cover, but it's always nice to have a heartwarming story.
I kind of wanted to get us in, obviously, like election's election, we want to be informed, but I want to get some nice, good stories out there, because a lot of good stuff happening.
Yeah. Well, going off of that, for me, I mean, I think definitely good news here. Trent Lavakis, our colleague, covered a story about the farm bill that just passed the Senate. That's going to I think State Senator Joe Comerford, who represents communities in Hampshire County, she was a big champion of this bill. Trent was able to interview her about it. It's basically going to support 7,000 farms all throughout Massachusetts through this like four-pronged approach, where it's going to be like basically helping to preserve farmland as much as possible. And this is such a big deal because I remember when I covered Hampshire County a few years ago, we had a devastating summer where we had a ton of rainfall. And I remember going to multiple press conferences, just farmers just lamenting about the situation, and it's just really dire. So it's really nice to see 3 years later something of importance passing the Senate. It still has to go to the House of Representatives and has to go in front of Governor Moore Healey's desk, but the bill is an act fostering agricultural resilience in Massachusetts. It's basically, so it's going to help small farms grow their businesses. It's going to make agritourism ventures possible. It's going to make it easier for residents to access healthy food by specifically making permanent programs such as the Health Incentives Program and the Farm to School Program, the latter of which brings local ingredients into schools. So basically codifies those programs if it passes, and also requires regular reporting about the distribution of local produce through food banks, school meals, Meals on Wheels. So it does a lot of different things, and basically the gist of it is trying to preserve farms throughout the state against as we see climate change each year. So definitely some good news there. We'll see what happens when it gets to the House of Representatives. And over in Westfield, Eric Bishop was sworn in as the new chief just the other day. Our colleague Cliff Clark wrote a story on that. He is replacing Patrick Egloff, who was the chief for 7 years in Westfield, and he was also part of the department for 30 years. So pretty big deal there. Cliff did two very well done stories about both firefighters. So check those out on the Westfield News. Also be in Penny Saver as well. Bishop, during his ceremony, just talked about the future and how about building trust. That was kind of his main mantra throughout the day. So big development in Westfield there. They've had someone there at the helm for a little bit, so now they're having a change of pace. Patrick Egloff retired last Friday. So big news for Westfield.
Yeah. And then, we've mentioned for pretty much all these stories, these are going to be available in the print edition as well as online at thereminder.com, or in the case of the Westfield Police Chief story, that'll be in Penny Saver as well as the Westfield News. Mm-hmm. So I guess kind of going off that a little bit, I don't know if this will be a every time we have a podcast type of segment, but we just wanted to kind of briefly touch on little update on some of the sports happenings in the area. Obviously, Celtics and Bruins, they're locked in their playoff series. Both teams 1-1 after last night's games. Fortunately, wasn't able to watch the Bruins because it coincided with the new episode of Daredevil. So, and I'd already watched the Celtics and the Red Sox. The Celtics, and then obviously the Red Sox are playing right now. They're locked in a series with the Yankees. That series will be over by the time this episode airs, but it's not looking great.
No. Yeah.
The bats are not really doing it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like I definitely think there are holes in the lineup with the Red Sox. I think part of it too, though, is just April is such a weird month for baseball. And if you look at the standings, it's like the Guardians, like the Twins were in first place. They had the best record in the American League as of 2 weeks ago. So it's just April's so weird because the weather is bipolar. It's 80 degrees one day, and it's today where it's 50 degrees and dreary. So it's It's tough to really get in a groove, I think, when the weather's like that, especially in Boston. But there are some glaring holes in the offense. There's not a lot of power, which is not good for probably the most hitter-friendly park in the league. So we'll see. It's hard to, there's so many games, so it's hard to just, throw the towel in this early. But there are some things to, to just consider and to pay attention to with their season as it goes on.
Yeah. I'm mostly just glad we're talking about baseball now.
Yeah, 100%.
Starting up, we got
NBA
and NHL playoffs. Like, it's just a great time of year.
Yeah, 100%.
So speaking locally, our Springfield Thunderbirds, they are also in the playoffs right now. Unfortunately, with the way the AHL playoffs work, they are not going to have a home game in this first round. But you'll be able to check these games out at MGM. They're hosting the TAP is hosting watch parties for all this week.
Cool.
So obviously, today's the 22nd and 24th. It'll be Friday. So yes, that's a day that you'll be able to go check it out, and then also on Saturday.
Yeah, that's cool. Great for the city.
Yeah,
happy for Springfield. They did a block party, I think, last weekend or some days ago, and they did that in the past too when they made the playoffs. So whenever the Thunderbirds are playing well or they're making a playoff run, it seems like the city kind of gets behind them. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and right now they're down in Charlotte playing the Checkers. But I remember, what was that, 2-3 years ago where they made their big push to the finals? Yeah, and that was I remember that was a fun time.
Yeah, I had people walking out being like, "Springfield's a place to be." It was people were hyped. They were hyped up that year. So we'll see if they make another deep run this year.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah. Love seeing the local teams do well, especially at the minor level. I mean, obviously, I know we had our interviews with the Yard Goats and the Woo Sox, so definitely also good local teams that we love to cheer for. But
100%.
I think with that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into our interview with Tyler.
Yes.
Are you hearing wedding bells? Take a deep breath. Go Local Magazine has your back. Our wedding special section is your one-stop resource to the best in local photographers, caterers, florists, venues, and so much more. Get inspired by the couples who share their special day with us. Then check out the experts who created their perfect event. It's all here and all at your fingertips in Go Local. We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news.
All right, we are back for our interview with Tyler. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, guys. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yes. Feel a little weird being in the interviewee seat today?
It really does. It really does. But, this is a topic we've kind of discussed in passing. I've been covering for months, so, kind of excited to dive into it.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess to kind of get started, can you kind of just give the listeners like an overview of this whole situation in South Hadley with the tax override, obviously not passing, and what kind of got them to this point?
Yeah, sure. So we'll kind of go back to the beginning, or at least from my point of view, the beginning, covering it. I've only been here for a few years, so it's not saying a lot, but this is one of the more unique and unfortunate and just, I guess, crazier stories I've covered. This dates all the way back till September. I had to look back and see the first story I wrote. Ryan likes to credit me and say I was one of the first media outlets to pick it up, so I'll take the credit if that's true. Yeah. But the town administrator and the superintendent, they had a meeting going over the preliminary budget for FY27 as well as fiscal year 2026, where they were trying to still level the budget, although that already passed, and they were already looking ahead. And at the time, even in September, they identified that it looked like the town was going to face a projected budget gap of around $3 million. was when the school department especially had their major cuts that they projected. Sports, extracurricular activities, a lot of AP and honors classes, reduction in other electives, increased fees, and, in the 20 cut positions for administrative positions, the town was going to lose pretty much 2 or 3 staff members from every department. Town hall is going to be closed on Mondays and or Fridays. The Gaylord Memorial Library was that cut of being eliminated. I mean, I wrote that, and, like any story, I made sure to double, triple check the information I heard correctly. Yeah. And I believe this time I might have checked 7 or 8 times because you don't want to put this information out because it sounds so surreal. I think even Ryan reached out to me and was like, is this correct? And I was like, yeah, it is. And at that time I reached out to both the superintendent and town administrator also just to make sure, like, hey, is this correct? And it was correct. And, at the time, those were just preliminary kind of discussions. They had time to figure everything out, and kind of leads us to, where we are today.
Yeah. Now, they created a budget task force, am I correct? That kind of went into, was that after this initial meeting in the fall where they kind of formed this task force and decided to explore this? Was that kind of...
Yes and no. The task force itself began in actually the summer of 2025 because they identified that they were going to have some cliffs and some shortfalls coming up, and they wanted to obviously get ahead of the situation. But they created this. They began meeting regularly, to look at budget needs for the short-term, long-term strategies, to try and get some fiscal stability, because although this is the first year where there's some major cuts happening, the last couple of years I've covered South Hadley, they've been cutting positions in the school department especially every year. So they reviewed options, they scheduled public listening sessions, and eventually developed some recommendations to try and maintain some essential services. I believe it was 4 public listening sessions. I believe their report was over 70 pages that they released in February. Just talking about, why the town is where they are right now. They deemed that it wasn't just one thing. It was, health insurance was a big thing that was talked about. I mean, I think it increased by $2 million just for this upcoming year, and it's going to increase by $2 million every single year. But they said there was a plethora of problems that they identified, and they wanted to try and, look forward to. So the task force, had a very in-depth look at everything going on.
Going off of that, I actually have the report up, and it was health insurance costs increased by 42%, according to the task force. Special education costs, which are legally required by the state, increased significantly. School choice numbers were negative, which created a $3 million expense to the town. Inflation, and in a lot of cases, impacted the town. So like you were just saying, it seemed like there was a plethora of things that impacted it. There was so what happened. So then there was a town meeting, if I'm not mistaken, right? That they asked the town. But this was a non-binding question, though. It ultimately came down to the select board, but a non-binding question asking the residents, basically getting a feel of the town. Are you in support of an override to basically save these services? And that was the next thing, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. So
and then Tyler, before you jump into that too, that town meeting, it's also representative town meeting, correct? It's not the town meeting some folks are used to, where it's the whole town can go.
Yes, that is correct. Obviously you're allowed to attend, media or other people, but yes, it is a representative town meeting, so there's only a certain amount of votes. They hosted the special town meeting in February. There was only 86 representatives at the town meeting who voted. And yes, it was, like you said, Ryan, a non-binding question. And at the time, and I know the election ballot had a $9 million or $11 million option. At the time, they were looking at a $6 million override option as well. So at town meeting, they were able to vote on those 3 options. There was a $3 million option also, but that was basically level service. They They deemed that wasn't going to really make a dent in anything. So at the town meeting, over 90% of town meeting members voted against Article 2, which would have allowed the town to approve the budget without fully funding all the services. So that was if there was no tax override. And then of the 86 representatives at town meeting, who voted for. Sorry, let me start over.
No,
there were 86 representatives at town meeting who voted for a tax override preference. Like I mentioned, 66% voted for the $11 million override option, and 19% voted for the $9 million option. There was also 9% for the $6 million option and 6% for the $3 million option. So I know that was a small sample size, but it seems like everyone was on board with at least some sort of override.
So after that, there was no real indication from your coverage that people were kind of against this in the way that they came out to vote against it?
No, not at least, maybe it's just who I was talking to and hearing from, but a lot of people were, on board with it, whether I, saw them in passing at events, or even if I heard them talking during public comment. A lot of the buzz I saw online was, they're in support of it. There's a whole website dedicated to Save South Hadley. I know there was there was a lot of signs in town. There was obviously vote yes, or also there was some vote no signs, and like probably in many communities there was some problems with people taking signs off lawns and showing their displeasure. And so this was I guess somewhat of a shock when it eventually got to the no votes on the election day.
So just going back to the timeline, so after that happened, the town meeting, the select board eventually passed basically the ballot. They approved the ballot with two budget overrides, the $9 million, the $11 million.
Yes.
Both with the goal of basically saving all of these, or at least some of these services, or the majority of these services that you've talked about that were going to be cut. So that happened. After that, the school budget passes. It was $27.5 million. But that was kind of just like that, as you indicated in your coverage, like that could change depending on what happened at the election. And then the election happens April 14th. The residents say we don't want either override. So now South Hadley's in jeopardy of, losing all these services that you talked about. What do you think kind of shifted, I guess? You said there was early indications that the overrides could pass. Do you think it was just the tax increase? I know the property tax increase was a big thing. Do you think that's what kind of led to the shift of people not supporting the overrides?
Yeah, it's possible, because obviously everything in the world now is so expensive. You kind of... I don't blame some people if they don't want to vote to pay more money than they already have to. And I also think there was just a lot of confusion. Obviously, this is definitely a unique situation. I, tip my cap to anyone in that administration in South Hadley, because this is a difficult situation to try and deal with. I mean, I think I've mentioned this a couple times on the podcast, but I would be at select board meetings and, public comment, and, residents would come up, ask a question, and kind of figure out what their impact would be for their taxes. And even the select board members were seemed like they were questioning if they were right or wrong. They even mentioned you were able to put a tax calculator online, and if you put in your assessed value for your home, you were able to see what your taxes would be like over the next 5 years if the override was approved. And originally the numbers were wrong, or not that they were wrong, but originally it said, for example, say it was like you owe $25,000 more in taxes. But people didn't understand that was spread out over 5 years. That wasn't per month. When they explained it at the time.
It was a little misleading in the sense that it was showing that it was whatever it would be.
Yes, at first, which I think also got people confused. So obviously, if they didn't take the time to ask questions, the town hosted a lot of community events. They hosted, a lot of listening sessions. They posted a lot on their community television page to really try and get everyone on the same page. So obviously, I do think, like you asked Ryan, taxes, they didn't want to raise them, but I think at the same time, seems like a lot of information was getting
misconstrued a little bit.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. The override thing is very confusing. I think I think everyone kind of gets confused by that at some point. But it's interesting that the comment Town Administrator Lisa Wong gave you, she said she wasn't surprised at the results, and it was definitely a big ask. To your point, mentioned the property tax increase and all that. So. That's interesting, but here we are, right, where the vote didn't pass. So there is this kind of looming possibility that sports are lost, extracurricular activities are lost, teaching positions, administrative positions are lost. The school department, middle school, high school music could be reduced. Do you have an idea where we kind of go through, where we kind of go now after this, and what's kind of the next steps in South Hadley?
Yeah, so the election took place April 14th. How it worked was there was two different questions: the $9 million option, the $11 million option. You were allowed to vote for both or neither or just one of them. If one of them got more votes than the other, or if both passed, the higher one would have passed. So the $11 million came down to it. Both failed. There was a nice voter turnout, 47% voter turnout. Which,
that's an insane number for what we usually see in our elections.
Exactly. So I was honestly nice to see that. So there was a good representation, not the usual 4 to 10%. I feel like on some elections, unfortunately.
Yes.
So there was a nice turnout. So. Kind of the aftermath. I mean, one of the things is the day after the election, I'm sure everyone saw hundreds of South Hadley high school students walked out and protest because obviously they are getting affected a lot, if they lose all these things outside of their classes. And to go from here, I mean, it's a fluid situation, really, because, I mean, we're recording here on the 22nd. Last night, on April 21st, the select board hosted a joint committee meeting with the school committee, appropriations committee, capital planning committee, just to first give each committee, the select board gave each committee a chance to ask questions, kind of like, how can we go from here? And residents also had a chance to talk. And it still seems like, although the school committee and the town approved their budgets, they were hesitant to approve them because they had to approve them with the cuts in it because they obviously weren't approved for any overrides. They weren't approved for, proposition tax 2.5 override. So they had to pass them, send them to appropriations committee, and regardless of what happened, the budget doesn't get approved until it's passed at town meeting in May. So those still could have changed. But right now on the table is the budgets with the cuts in it. It still can be changed, but next up is town meeting in May. It's
it's May 13th.
Thank you. Yeah, Wednesday, May 13th. So that's when the budget will be voted on. And also last night the select board talked about the warrant, and they were going to vote on it, and then they were going to review it on April 28th ahead of it because. Two of the articles I saw, and I'll be writing about this week too, so this is kind of also a fluid situation for me. But one of them is to establish a special purpose stabilization fund known as the Override Stabilization Fund for the purpose of funding the future operating costs of the town and the public schools. So it seems like they're trying to take steps for this not to happen again.
Now, is that something I know Mount Holyoke pledged $3 million. Is that something that would probably go into that fund?
Yes. So that was another thing that was nice. That was like a week before the residents voted. I did see that Mount Holyoke College announced it's committing $3 million across the next decade in support of the public school system, students, and Fire District 2. So I'm sure that is something that would probably go in there because
that feels like something that they may not have like a specific funding mechanism for where they can just put that gift money. So that's definitely that was a question I had because I had seen that on the news when that had broken. But
yeah, so it is nice. I mean, kind of just going based off that, it's nice to see the town or other organizations in the town trying to step up. I know I also saw, I think it was a couple days after the event or the vote took place, it was the South Hadley Music's Parents Association indicated its intent to the district that they wanted to fund all the performing arts programs that have been cut through donations, fundraising events, grants, and community support. So right now the goal is $182,999. I don't know why it's so specific, but that's what they're looking for to try and save just the arts right now in the schools. So. Also, I watched most of that joint meeting last night, and at one point, I'll have to follow up on this, so don't quote me completely. One of the select board members did mention that the Friends of the Gaylord Memorial Library were able to get a donation to save it, at least for a year or two. I don't know. I believe the donation, he said quickly, was $550,000. So, how long that will save it, I'm not sure.
Because you have to imagine that's keeping the building open.
Yeah.
Costs for staff, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, I'll continue to cover this and write about this. I got to watch that meeting, but it still sounds like they're going to try and present something, whether it's at this next town meeting or later this year, about trying to do propose another override, whether it's not 11 million, maybe it's 4.5, maybe it's something smaller to save some cuts. Because, the budget task force did mention that an override wouldn't solve all of this. Even the $11 million would have saved probably all the positions, but then you're in the same situation probably.
Yeah, but then what do you do in 5 years?
Exactly. So, because I know, Save South Hadley created a page where they have a lot of numbers, and, the projected budget gap next year was 3.5, but for FY 2030 to FY 2031, the projected budget gap is $10.5 million.
Yeah.
So it's only going to rise based on health insurance and a lot of other things. So
and those numbers are accurate. The task force also reported that as well in 2030, 31. So, so very precarious situation here in South Hadley.
You also mentioned that they were working on the warrant for town meeting. Typically, that has the budget in it. Did they have a budgetary number in there, or is that still?
Right now, the budgetary number is approximately $59.9 million. Okay. It being an increase of about a little less than $2 million from last year, so not a huge increase. I believe the school committee. Sorry, I wrote it down here somewhere. Sorry. Yeah, when the school committee approved their budget on March 25th, the increase would only be a couple percent. I remember the school administrator, the school superintendent, Jennifer Voyrick, she said schools in general typically need 4 to 6% increase each year to stay at least level service. That increase was only, I think, 1 or 2% from the year previous.
I mean, that's typically what schools get. I feel like,
unfortunately, and she mentioned everything. Like, if the 11 million, for example, was approved, it would have been an increase of 6.71% in FY27 and a 4% increase each year from 28 to 31. So it still would have been at the bottom of the recommendation. So there still would have been some tough cuts. But it's been a wild situation.
And I guess kind of going off of that too, obviously you mentioned it's a wild situation. Like, how challenging has this been for you to cover, and how does it compare to budgets you've covered in the past? Because this feels like a kind of like the white whale, where it's just geez.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been really crazy, the coverage is from my point of view. I've been covering it for months. I mean, like most things, I'll keep track once I submit it, and there's so many subcommittee meetings where they talk about different aspects, and I feel like I was tuning in so many nights, whether I was, writing about it or just to get a head start for the next day. I mean, the appropriations committee meets. I mean, the budget task force met a lot. So it was all, I was trying my best to keep up to date with everything instead of just waiting every other week for the select board meeting where they presented so much new information. It's like, well, where did that come from?
And then you're able to kind of inform with what you've learned from these meetings before it actually gets to the select board.
Exactly. And because like I said, it seemed like a lot of residents were confused. So it was, I was trying my best to make sure I had all the correct information, as much information as I could, so that they were easy, because I'm obviously a bystander in all this. I don't live in South Hadley, but it was wild, and especially seeing some national media sources pick it up, Wall Street Journal. From my point of view, it's been wild, and there's been a lot of people reaching out over email, kind of expressing their feelings on it. So, I'm going to be so locked in going forward.
Yeah. Well, and it's just it's reflective of just the precarious budget situations in a lot of communities, as we've mentioned before. And South Hadley is just a microcosm of that, and unfortunately, it could be like a poster child if the worst happens. You know what I mean? Where I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, but there was a select board member that said South Hadley would be the first community in Massachusetts without sports. First down. So it's like. Yeah, if it gets to that point, so it's
Yeah, one of the things I heard the superintendent say briefly last night is, she's already gotten a lot of letters on her desk about people wanting to leave the district, school choice wise, or stuff like that, to because they want to go somewhere where they can play their sports or, be able to perform in arts or music or stuff like that. So, it's hard to blame the kid if they want to go somewhere else to get that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, it's such a, like a mental health thing, honestly, social emotional thing, obviously when I was younger, school was school, but I always looked forward to, playing sports or doing these other after school activities. So I can't, it's that's tough if kids don't have, access to
library.
Library. Yeah. So it's just that's just difficult for kids to not have access to any of that.
I know. And, kind of even just going obviously past the kids, because their impacts or their cuts are obviously the most, but, there's public safety aspects. I mean, you lose a couple staff in the police, and then there's a couple staff in town hall that they might have to close one day a week. Yeah. Maybe that's the only day people can get out there. And seniors, the senior center, there's going to be some programs and stuff cut. So, there's a lot of things still projected and a lot of things to still be talked through. And, it's nice that I'm the one writing it and not trying to figure out the budget because I'm not good with numbers.
I think that's why we're all writers.
Yes. So I know they have a lot of hard work to do, and I'm sure they're doing all they can. But it's been a lot. But they've been very transparent, I will say. Town administrator getting back to me and community meetings, making sure everyone's informed.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyler, I think that's all the questions we have for you. Unless there's anything else you can think of adding. I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive overview of the whole situation.
Yeah. No, I think we pretty much covered it all. I think the only thing I will leave with is, if anyone from South Hadley is listening or anyone who wants to, learn more about it, obviously check out all the coverage I've had on the Reminder.
Yes.
There's still more to come, especially this week and next and up until town meeting. And I mean, I still cover South Hadley no matter what, so there's plenty of stuff. And then also, like I said, Save South Hadley has a website with a lot of information. I'm not trying to advocate one way or another in this sense. I'm just showing that they have a lot of up-to-date information that is included on there, as well as the South Hadley Community TV has a lot of videos explaining what a Proposition 2.5 override is, what a tax levy is. So, if you're just wanting to learn more, definitely check out any of those places.
Yeah. All right, great. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
All right, we're back. Ryan, obviously interesting conversation with Tyler. The thing that blows my mind, we mentioned it, but the library. I can't imagine being a high school student not having athletics after school. I didn't do a sport in the fall, but I did track spring and winter. So it was just like, that's just something you just miss. And then obviously beyond athletics, like after school programs, things like that, like I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, and it's tough, and I'm glad Tyler emphasized this, and you just did too, that this isn't just the schools, there's other aspects of town, which is like I think important. That I think some people, if you look online, have kind of missed that. It's not just one aspect; it's a bunch of things. So it's like it is difficult. I mean, I'm just picturing myself like as a high schooler. Like personally, I'm going to be honest, like I was pretty miserable waking up at like 6 a.m. every day for school. I mean, there was classes I looked forward to, but, just waking up at 6 a.m. as a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, it was tough. But I always looked forward to stuff like sports, like playing basketball after or doing these other programs, because it is like a social thing. That's where you meet your friends. You get, you foster your group. You foster your sense of self. Like you also foster this... maybe this, not only a hobby, but maybe something you want to do in the future, so it's difficult. It's a very difficult situation. And,
and then the one thing that our Prime editor, Deb Gardner, always brings up is when Hamden shut down their library, you think about, it saves you money, but if you ever want to open it back up, it is so expensive to do. Just for operating costs and not having that be there for a while, like it takes a lot to get it back up and running. So if that's something that goes down, then it'll be difficult to get up in the future. But it's just one of those things where this year it feels like the cracks are finally starting to really show, not only in South Hadley. South Hadley's like the big, holy crap. What do we do? Like when you're facing that steep a cliff, but you look at Chicopee, they're up against it because they got slightly shifted in the funding formula, so they're getting less money. Hampden Wilbraham, they're in deep trouble. They're looking at cutting a whole bunch of positions as well. It's just like
East Hampton mayor just released a big statement like about their precarious budget situation. So it's everywhere.
And the big thing is, it's just the funding's just not really coming from the state anymore. It feels like that's kind of the there's something broken with the funding formula where towns are just. Because it's not, if it was like a few here and there, it would be one thing, but it's like every town. Yeah. Even like the towns that normally don't have issues, like Agawam and West Springfield, I think they're up against it as well this year. So it's just, something's got to give.
No, something's got to. It is like, you are right about the cracks showing. It's kind of this post like COVID landscape in a way, where like the ESSER funds ran out.
And a lot of the funding was put in the positions that like everybody was warned against not doing.
Yep.
And that's something that obviously has a tremendous impact.
Yep. South Northampton. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then you think about like the Fair Share Amendment, like people that hasn't gone the way people have expected. Obviously, it's kind of in the big broad bucket of transportation and education, but part of that education funding has gone to the free community college, stuff like that. So it's not going as much into the K-12, which I think I think a lot of people wanted that specifically. And obviously, I mean, we've seen all the potholes.
Yeah. Yes. But, a lot of potholes in this region for sure. But no, it's a tough situation. Obviously, we'll see what happens. As like Tyler was saying, it's very fluid. As we were talking, there's still meetings going on, and there's a town meeting coming up, and that's kind of going to be, by then they'll be where they're at is where they're at.
Because they have to imagine now they have the budget number, and now it's really figuring out which positions are staying and things like that, and it's a very tight window for them to get that. So
seems like it's all hands on deck too. The meeting that Tyler was mentioning was like a quad meeting. It's like a bunch of different committees coming together, so there seems like they're all hands on deck now that the override did not pass. So see what happens though.
All right, I think with that we'll leave you there. So thanks for listening. We'll be back in another couple of weeks.
See everyone.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.